And there's unbelievable stuff going on. Happy Thanksgiving to the United States. Calgary, we have to go back to Dr. Strangelove. We're going to watch that Mandrake clip. Mandrake, have you ever thought about fluoridation of water, Mandrake? And we're going to watch that while Calgary adds fluoride to its water. And there are people saying, we're looking forward to the class action lawsuit. How dare you do this? You're overstepping, blah, 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 all sorts of stuff. People are upset. And can they stop it? I have no idea, but it seems like moving forward with fluoridation of water in Calgary. GST confidence vote today. And so, okay, there's not a weird thing going on, but Donald Trump is saying going to add the 25% tariffs, which triggered an emergency debate in the House, which is kind of dominating things. But also at the same time, there's a GST rebate that the Liberals are trying to use to unblock the House from the filibuster that the Conservatives are using to block up the House because, well, they don't think that the Liberals should be governing, and this is what they can do, and they're holding up the House, demanding documents that the House of Commons has demanded that the Liberals hand over, but the Liberals have not handed them over, and so they're at an impasse. But emergencies, debates, and other things can take priority, and the NDP are going to prop up, and I've got the tab about that today, about Jagmeet Singh going to prop up the Liberals to get the NDP holiday passed, but not the $250 checks. So the whole thing's bonkers. It's crazy. So we're going to talk about the GST vote. We're going to talk about the Trump tariffs. We're going to talk about the cost of the carbon tax and new studies, and there's a whole lot to get to. So let's get to it. First, we have to look at, sorry, I'm not as smooth today as usual. We have to look at the GST and what's going on with all that in the $250 rebate check. Here's CBC News. Here we go.
They had to pay a price, but the Liberals' promise of a GST holiday is a step closer as the MPs started debate Wednesday evening.
It'll be great to get a GST, HST cut over the holidays for Canadian families.
This short little gift of giving them back more of their own money into their pockets is a sad comment on this government.
Why is the Liberal Party so adept at offering half measures?
The tax relief would apply from mid-December through February 15th on some toys, alcohol, restaurants and takeout. The minority government needs support to pass it, and the NDP says it will in a vote expected as early as Thursday. But that's only part of what Prime Minister Justin Trudeau announced last week.
So we already know what he announced last week. Here's Dan Kelly. He says new CFIB data says only 4% of small businesses expect stronger sales as a result of the temporary GST, HST holiday. So nobody's saying the GST holiday and the spring check of $250 is going to boost this holiday season at all. But oh, well, right? What are you going to do? And there have been people, a whole bunch of people have been saying, hey, on this bill of $100, the GST is something like $2 or $3 or something like that. And in contrast, my mortgage has gone up by $1,200 a month, right? Like, so thanks for the relief, thanks for nothing, right? Like, right? So yeah, here's Amazing Zoltan, and he's highlighting this exchange between the Bloc leader and Trudeau, and you can see Poilievre nodding and agreeing enthusiastically with Blanchette. So here is this exchange.
This is what he's standing against. He's trying to convince Canadians that everything's broken while he forces his MPs to vote against a GST break that's going to help Canadians over the coming months. That's not leadership. That's pandering to the lowest common denominator.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister has everyone unanimously against him and his so-called Christmas present. Canadians don't want it, business owners don't want it, retirees don't want it, students don't want it, economists don't want it, even those who are well off and kind-hearted, they don't want it. No one wants the Prime Minister's Christmas gift. When will the Prime Minister understand that one cannot buy votes? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, Canadians are struggling. That's why we are offering a tax break to all Canadians for the next few months. Mr. Speaker, Canadians who are struggling are those who will not receive a rebate check. You know who is struggling, Mr. Speaker? The Liberals themselves. The Conservatives don't seem to support the proposal. The NDP neither. The Bloc Québécois neither. No one in this House seems to support the rebate check. If the Prime Minister is so sure of himself, why doesn't he make it a matter of confidence and have a confidence vote?
There you go. So Poilievre enthusiastically nodding, Andrew Scheer laughing and clapping. And so they've stripped out the $250 check from the bill being proposed in the House of Commons, and Jagmeet Singh will vote for it. He says so here. Here's Jagmeet Singh's official account. Breaking tomorrow night, a GST HST holiday will be passed. Pierre Poilievre hates it, but New Democrats won't let him win the fight. It's weird because when you start framing things that way, you've lost perspective. You've lost your ability to be arm's length and impartial. You're now in it to win it. Like it's him or me, and I'm not going to let that guy win, right? So I worked with kids, and they told you part of the training is if you start getting this mentality, you should step away. Like you should no longer work with that kid, because if you're thinking that this is a competition or something, you've lost the plot, buddy, and you need to get perspective back. Go back to the whatever, like go back to the office, go to the smoking tree, whatever you've got to do, but don't interact with that kid anymore if you start thinking like that. And I think it was good advice then. It's good advice now for politicians. Anyway, this is just a start. Jagmeet Singh says, if we form an NDP government, we will permanently take... ha ha ha, right? Are you kidding, Jagmeet Singh? If we form an NDP government, he says, we will permanently take the tax off daily essentials and monthly bills. That includes internet, cell phone, and home heating bills. We also support a $250 rebate check, and we're demanding Justin Trudeau include seniors, people with disabilities, and injured workers. So when Blanchette was saying nobody supports this thing, he was talking about the $250 check that was going only to working Canadians. Here's Jagmeet Singh again. Dan Albus says, I thought this was a parody account. And Jagmeet Singh is saying, when I'm Prime Minister, right? No, that's not going to happen. Jagmeet Singh says, let's get the GST holiday passed right away. I've made it clear to Justin Trudeau I want it done this week. Okay, yeah, you're in charge. You're driving the bus, Jagmeet. Sure you are, bud. Then when I'm the Prime Minister, we'll permanently take the GST off daily essentials and monthly bills. He can't manage his party. Like, here we go. Here's Jagmeet Singh.
We're letting them know right now. We're letting it be very clear. My expectation is let's pass the GST holiday right now separately and then fix the checks. And when I mean fix the checks, I want to see a fix that includes seniors, people living with disabilities, and those that weren't able to work. We're letting them know. So
there you go. Jagmeet Singh is setting his standard and using the position he's in to make changes, right? And he's going to frame that as a win. It's inflationary. I don't think anybody should get the checks. Pierre Poilievre says Jagmeet Singh betrayed Canadians by backing Trudeau's tax hikes, which made gas and food more expensive. He will never stand up to Trudeau because his pension matters more to him. Workers can't trust the NDP. Sign here. So when I say he's going to use this as a win, he's going to say, look, I fought for seniors and people who weren't working and this and that, and I got them this money. And I don't want the $250 going out. And I think there's an argument that could be made that the GST doesn't need to be on all goods and it's inflationary and generally bad. But again, I haven't done enough research into it to look into the alternatives, but I think there are better alternatives. Regardless of that, it's interesting where Jagmeet Singh says this, but doesn't put any meat on those bones. What's he going to replace the GST with, right? Like you've got to have the other side of that coin because otherwise it's just a useless, meaningless talking point. So Pierre Poilievre, Jagmeet Singh, yeah, so he's supporting all this stuff. Also, the carbon tax is in play, and it would be much better to get rid of the carbon tax. It's higher priority to get rid of the carbon tax and the GST and all taxes on energy, right? But again, you have to have a plan to either reduce government spending to the tune of however much that's worth, or have an alternate funding plan, right? And without that, you can't just we're giving everybody cars. We're going to have everybody a brand new car. You're welcome. Yeah, no. How am I going to pay for it? Next question, right? Like, you can't, that's not a plan. That's a wish list. Bruce McGonigal says, the cringiest thing I've seen in the House of Commons. Oh, it is really cringy. I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I'm doing this to you. It's cringy, but it's very Canadiana. But it's so cringy. It's so cringy. But at least they're singing Christmas songs. Although I'm suspicious of Christmas songs all of a sudden. Here's our House of Commons yesterday, and cringe.
Christmas music. If We Make It Through December is one of my favorites about the difficult times that families experience during the holiday season. On December 14th, our government will help families by pausing the tax on essential items like groceries, toys, children's clothing, holiday goodies, and even Christmas trees. But Mr. Speaker, the leader of the opposition, he's a mean one, Mr. Grinch, and he doesn't want your Christmas tax break. That is, unless it benefits his wealthy oil and gas donors.
Yeah.
And while conservatives on the naughty list still refuse to get security checks, on this side of the House, we're making sure Canadians don't have a blue Christmas. Across Canada, we're giving smart policy instead of cheap slogans, bringing joy to children and helping restaurants thrive, all to make sure that it's the most wonderful time of the year. And Mr. Speaker, that's something to sing about.
No, thanks. Moving on. Joe says, if the 25 to 30 Liberal MPs want Trudeau out, tomorrow is their chance. So it's going to be a vote today, and probably today, for the GST tax holiday. And if it's, I think it's a confidence vote. As far as I understand it, it's a confidence vote. Jagmeet Singh says he's supporting it. And if they could finagle enough votes, this guy says 25 to 30 Liberals. However, when I saw the day that that whole thing went down, I thought that the number on the paper was 15. If it's 20, then they've got enough by the skin of their chinny chin chin, right? Like just barely. But by my calculations, if it's just 15, so the Bloc have 33, the Conservatives have 119, and the dissenters were pegged at 15. That's 167. You need 171. So I don't know. Wouldn't that be something if you got a situation where you were able to worm your way in and get those 15 or so Liberals to get on side for a confidence vote, right? Like their career's over, but whatever, right? Like, and or maybe they cross the floor, or whatever, right? Like if it fails, they cross the floor. But you get those 15 Liberals to vote with you to bring down the government and vote no confidence as soon as the confidence vote's triggered, right? Like you've got it. And then at the same time, maybe you work on backbenching NDP, right? If there's 15 dissenting Liberals, how many backbenching NDP are dissenters? Could you potentially sneakily get it in? I mean, like a vote is a vote, right? If the vote happens on the floor of the House of Commons and there are dissenting NDP and Liberal, 15 Liberals and 5 NDP, right? Then you've got enough. 4 NDP would be enough. 171, right? So I think that 171 is the number. So it's so close, right? You can almost taste it. And do you think that there's been overtures, right? How do you do that? Because people talk about who goes in and out of each other's offices, right? So like maybe it's electronic communications. Who knows? But also people are in each other's inboxes, right? Like people have proxy rights to if you're an MP, you have a main inbox and then there's a private inbox, right? And in your main inbox, you've got assistants and people with proxy ability to get in there. And that's the gatekeeping, right? Like as soon as you get into the main inbox and then you can get moved over to the private inbox, then you've got direct access, right? But most of the time it's people with proxy who can get in and out. And like financial firms do this, all sorts of like, oh, I'm an assistant. I'm basically this person, you know, I'm working on their behalf or whatever it is, right? They get instructions, they execute the instructions on the behalf of the person doing the name behind it, right? So it's interesting. We'll see. I don't know how the communications would go. I've never been involved, but like it's super interesting what's going on. We'll see if this all pans out. JJ McCullough says the fact that our parliament cannot vote no confidence in Trudeau, who obviously has zero public mandate to govern in this time of crisis, is a severe indictment of our democratic system. Jagmeet Singh is keeping a man he knows is unfit in office just to get a pension. The press should constantly hound Jagmeet with 2 questions. Why are you keeping Justin Trudeau in office when you've consistently said he's unfit to be prime minister? 2, this is clearly about your pension, right? Or just about your pension, right? They've said that to him. I don't think he really cares. I think he's like, yeah, worst kept secret in Ottawa. Next question. Like, Jagmeet Singh is not messing around this time, says Mark. He will stop at nothing, even if it's no confidence. He wants Canada's debt to balloon to $100 billion this year. Jagmeet says Trudeau is useless, but supports him 100%. It's 5 minutes. We're not going to listen to it right now, but it's interesting what's going on. So today is Thanksgiving, and we're going to talk about America and the 25% tariffs and the emergency debate and all that stuff too, because the other side of the coin, right? Not only is there a GST rebate and a potential confidence vote and all that stuff going on, but there's this emergency 25% tariff debate going on. And it's pretty funny how that's all playing out, if you ask me. But first, I want to wish Americans a happy Thanksgiving. Rush Limbaugh's talking about the story of Thanksgiving. And it's interesting. We're just going to start it a little bit here. He's talking about how the Pilgrims came over from England and they were being persecuted in England and they were looking for, freedom and the ability to govern for themselves and so on and so forth. And the story of the real Thanksgiving, apparently he did this every year for his entire, while he was on the air. And so that's interesting. Here's Rush Limbaugh, just really briefly. We're a minute and a half, maybe. Here we go.
Try to explain flight, jet travel.
He's talking about how primitive they are, and he's like, they wouldn't understand jet power. They wouldn't understand airplanes. And
they wouldn't understand it.
I just don't. No, I don't think so. If I brought up, I think they'd have a harder time understanding flat panel televisions. They'd be like, wow, that's really impressive. I could make a paper airplane and be like, see, look how this flies, right? And then explain the concept of the lift on the wing and the whole deal. And then just be like, look at that. Cool, right? We've got tons of those things. They bring packages all over the world. Supply chain, just-in-time supply chain. Now that's something to wrap your head around, buddy. Right? But he's like, oh, they wouldn't understand flight. They'd understand flight. If they could figure out sailing, they'd understand flight. Come on, Rush.
They knew they were facing hardship. But paramount importance to them was living freely and worshiping God according to the dictates of their own consciences, their own beliefs. That's what they were denied the freedom to do in England. So, August 1st, 1620, the Mayflower set sail. There were a total of 102 passengers, including 40 of these separatists, the Pilgrims. There were just 40 of them. They were led by a man named William Bradford. Remember his name. On the journey across the Atlantic, you talk about something ahead to be frightening and scary. The Mayflower was not much bigger than a 50-foot boat. 102 people on it. On the journey, William Bradford set up an agreement, a contract, if you will, that established just and equal laws for all members, all 40 members of this pilgrim community. Didn't matter what their religious beliefs were. These were the laws they were all agreeing to live by. Now, where did these laws, these ideas come from?
So anyway, he would go through this. There was a point. There was a little section I wanted to. There was a specific part that I was going to talk about, but I can't remember now why. And usually I watch and I'm like, oh yeah, that's what I wanted to talk about, but it didn't come to me. So apologies. Maybe I moved it and lost the section. But it is Thanksgiving, and I'm glad that people are celebrating Thanksgiving, and that's kind of fun. And I hope it's a really good Thanksgiving for the United States because Donald Trump is coming in as president. And well, fingers crossed, that's the best we could have hoped for, right? So we'll see what happens next. Here is Ann Irish, and when Donald Trump the other day said, hey, Canada and Mexico, smarten up or I'm going to slap you around a whole lot with economic sanctions and tariffs, Mexico took him seriously. And today, here's the announcement from Donald Trump. Mexico will stop people from going to our southern border effective immediately. This will go a long way towards stopping the illegal invasion of the United States. Thank you. And he goes further. He says, just had a wonderful conversation with the new president of Mexico, Claudia Sheinbaum Pardo. She has agreed to stop migration through Mexico and into the United States, effectively closing our southern border. We also talked about what can be done to stop the massive drug inflow to the United States and also U.S. consumption of these drugs. It was a very productive conversation. So Trump says Mexico President Claudia Sheinbaum has agreed to close the southern border by stopping migrant caravans after he threatened her with 25% tariffs. Sheinbaum also agreed to create a plan for stopping the inflow of drugs to the United States, right? So Eddie says President Trump says Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum has agreed to close the southern border. So big news, right? Awesome. Has Canada made a phone call to say, hey, Trump, we got your message and we're going to totally do everything you're talking about because, yeah, that would be beneficial for Canada too. Totally good point. We see where you're coming from. Real sorry, bro. No. Quebec Anon. Now, this isn't sourced. There's no link that she's citing. So this is either a little insider information, or I haven't seen her source yet. But it does line up as far as the other kind of conversations that I've seen around what people are going to do about this. So I don't know if this is 100% true, but this seems exactly like what Chrystia Freeland and Justin Trudeau would do. Take it with a grain of salt. I'll firm it up as the next few days go on and we see what we actually do. But this is what Quebec Anon says. Just in, Canada is examining tariffs on certain U.S. items. Wah wah, right? Like, Canada is already preparing to examine possible retaliatory tariffs on specific U.S. items in response to President-elect Donald Trump's threat to impose sweeping tariffs on Canadian products. A senior official stated that Canada is preparing for every eventuality and has started thinking about which items to target with tariffs in retaliation. However, no decision has been made yet. Key points: Canada's examination of retaliatory tariffs is in response to Trump's threat to impose tariffs on products from Canada to Mexico. Canada and Mexico if the countries don't stop the flow of drugs and migrants across their borders. The U.S. products being considered for tariffs are not specific, but Canada's previous experience with retaliatory tariffs in 2018 provides insight into the potential targets, like yogurt. In 2018, Canada imposed billions of dollars in new duties on U.S. products, including yogurt, whiskey, and other goods, in a tit-for-tat response to U.S. tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum. Canada's examination of retaliatory tariffs is likely to focus on products with significant political or economic impact rather than purely economic ones. Context: Canada is the top exporter destination for 36 states and crucial supplier of energy, steel, aluminum, uranium to the United States. The U.S. and Canada have a long-standing trade relationship with over $3.6 billion worth of goods and services crossing the border daily. Implications: a potential escalation of tariffs could have severe implications for both countries, disrupting trade flows and affecting businesses and consumers. The examination of retaliatory tariffs by Canada highlights the potential for a trade war between the two nations, which could have far-reaching consequences for global trade economics and stability. So, yeah, well, they keep saying, Andrew Coyne, a whole bunch of people keep saying, the idea that the United States needs to do this is not correct, or it's Andrew Coyne used the same terminology as Pierre Poilievre. Irrational. They keep calling him irrational, and he's not if you can see fentanyl flooding in the border from the north and the south, it's not irrational to want to protect your people from that. It just seems that our government doesn't want to protect us from that at all whatsoever, and gets offended when another country's leader points it out. As well, if you see actual people flooding across your border and human trafficking children, and I watched that human trafficking movie, and holy snap, it's really good. You should watch it. The link is in the description. But yeah, the idea is to discredit his concerns as irrational, but I think it's completely rational. It makes perfect sense to me. Here's Pierre Poilievre. This is part of the emergency debate talking about the 25% tariffs. This one will make more sense than the Thanksgiving one. Here we go. It's too fast. I'm sorry. Not that I was in a hurry this morning, but I was excited to get the show rolling. We have a lot of tabs today.
Between 11 or 12 politicians, and somehow this is going to solve the problem. We need a real plan. Real action that will defend our economy and our security, and most of all, to put Canada first. First, Mr. Speaker, the debate is over. There can be no tax increases. The tax increases the Prime Minister proposed on work, investment, energy were irresponsible and destructive all along. But now they are economic suicide. Think about the impact that a 61-cent a litre carbon tax would have when the tax is zero south of the border. President Trump has made it clear he wants our jobs and our businesses. You can only imagine his economic development teams calling trucking companies, factories, forestry enterprises, saying, hey, you're facing a 61-cent a litre carbon tax north of the border. Drive 50 kilometers south and we have zero carbon tax. By the way, business and personal taxes are already much lower and will drop further. There will be a powerful sucking sound of jobs, businesses, and money leaving our country to enrich the United States. This is like a tariff imposed by our own government on our own economy, compounded with a real tariff from the United States of America, that this would cripple our economy. So we are calling for the Prime Minister to announce today that he will cancel all tax increases on energy, on work, on businesses. Let's give our people a fighting chance to save their jobs.
Fair point, right? And yeah, there's a reason people are leaving Canada for the United States. Lower taxes, more opportunity. In addition to the emergency debate, Doug Ford was convening a meeting with everyone and their dog. Doug Ford, he says, "Today I convened a meeting with the U.S. Drug Enforcement Agency, the Canadian Border Services Agency, and the Ontario Provincial Police to learn more about what needs to happen to secure our border. Here's what I heard. We need a plan with more resources, and we need to break down information silos. If the federal government really means they want a Team Canada approach, that needs to include our police services and agencies." So they're bringing in everybody they can. Danielle Smith as well. They had a First Minister's meeting with Justin Trudeau and Chrystia Freeland and Dominic LeBlanc, as well as all the premiers apparently in Ontario. And so that happened as well, which we'll get to in just a minute. Danielle Smith had an announcement, or makes an announcement. The Council of the Federation had a meeting with the Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, to discuss an approach to dealing with the 25% tariff on Canadian products threatened by the incoming U.S. administration. Although I oppose any tariff on Canadian or U.S. products, it's my view that Donald Trump and the tens of millions of Americans who voted for him have valid concerns related to illegal migrants and drug smuggling at our shared border. We know that the problem is much more serious at the Mexican-U.S. border. However, that does not diminish the need for the federal government and every province bordering the United States to take immediate steps to crack down heavily on these illegal border activities. Doing so is good for both the United States and Canada. I communicated this very clearly to the Prime Minister and further indicated that Alberta will be acting urgently and decisively to patrol our own shared border with Montana, with more details to be announced soon in that regard. I also expressed the need for the federal government to aggressively move up compliance with our country's NATO obligations of a 2% of GDP spend on our military forces, which is yet another concrete way to solidify our economic and military alliance with the United States. I also ensured the Prime Minister and Premiers understood the supreme importance of recognizing the incoming administration's commitment to energy security, and that Alberta is uniquely positioned in all of the world as the perfect partner for the United States in achieving that objective. It is therefore utter foolishness for the federal government to enact an energy production cap that would result in a massive curtailment of oil to the United States. I urge the Prime Minister to withdraw this energy production cap immediately as a show of commitment to North American energy security and partnership. In the coming months, my ministers and I will be working aggressively to reach out to our U.S. allies involved with the incoming U.S. administration and congressional leadership to work on strengthening our economic and energy partnerships and detailing the work that premiers across the country are actively engaging in to strengthen our nation's border security. So it's a little long, but you get the point. And when she says he has legitimate reasons to be worried, here is Sam Cooper highlighting exclusive inside the U.S. government investigation of Toronto Dominion, TD Bank, that revealed command and control of a global fentanyl money laundering in Toronto. So yay, right? So maybe that's what those Chinese characters above the TD Bank thing say. Buy fentanyl here and exchange money, right? Two-stop shop. Here is Amazing Zoltan. He is highlighting this meeting between Freeland and Dominic LeBlanc and police commissioners and first ministers, and she's talking about absolutely nothing. It's absolutely nothing. She says nothing. Here we go.
The Prime Minister has just hosted...
Oh my gosh. Usually when I've done previewing the clip, I try and put it back to 1 speed, but I guess I have not done that today. So apologies about that. But we'll get to rewind and watch the beginning part. Here we go.
Okay. Bonsoir. The Prime Minister has just hosted, together with Premier Doug Ford, a meeting of the First Ministers across Canada. Minister LeBlanc and I joined him, and we were also joined by Deputy Commissioner of the RCMP, Mark Flynn, who's with us here.
Some are questioning Trudeau's strength as a leader to deal with another Trump administration. Is this Trudeau's make or break moment?
Prime Minister Trudeau is our country's elected leader, and I have every confidence that he will be absolutely effective in dealing with President-elect Trump. He did have a conversation with the President on Monday, shortly after the President's tweet. That, to my mind, speaks to the effective and open lines of communication.
Mr. Freeland, how can you say that you're on the same page if in a statement afterwards, Doug Ford said, quote, that your government has been slow to react and stuck on the back foot? Is that really on the same page in your mind?
I can only speak to the conversation we had. On a présenté une bonne idée.
She doesn't say anything of substance here. She just says a whole bunch of French words in succession. Here's Gov.exe says, not even 3 weeks after Donald Trump won the election, our federal and provincial governments are now talking about improving border security and clamping down on drugs. Trump has already done more for Canada in 3 weeks than the entire Parliament, 338, have done in years. True, I'm not interested in hearing. Maybe we will. We'll just listen. Here we go. Hello everyone, thanks very much for watching. This is just a short version of a longer show. If you'd like to get the whole show, you can go over to CanadaPoly.com and sign up for a subscription. Just look in the drop-down tab for Shop and Donate and look for subscriptions, and you'll get immediate access to the full show. Love to see you. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful